I am just going to press a button. Hey, Anastasia. There was Anastasia for a short bit. You made it. Also welcome. Very nice. And if it's okay with you, Anastasia, I suggest we just get started, right? Or do you prefer to wait? It's 8:06. I think it's fine to get started. I'm not sure how many people registered, but I don't want to wait too long because we have quite a lot of information to go through. So I think we just got to dive into it. Otherwise, we're not going to make it. Yes, Anastasia, let's do that. Fantastic. Okay, guys. So wonderful you could make it all. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, for another Gem Class webinar, as I said. My name is Eva from Eva Gems and Jewels, and I am a gemologist, a gem dealer, and a fine jewelry designer, and I focus and specialize in rare colored gemstones. However, as I noticed in my work, when I am dealing with people and clients, how often people, when they encounter color stones, seem to refer back to concepts that actually come from the diamond trade and diamond grading. In the beginning, that really surprised me after, after I just started my company. But then I realized it's nothing more than logical, because it's the only framework we as consumers have, right? So it's an older framework than the color stone grading framework. So people naturally seem to remember it, and they seem to know the basic concepts of it. And then they try to apply that to the color stone business or the color grading field. And that is sometimes where mistakes happen, because the business, the diamond business and the color stone business and diamond grading and color stone grading tend to be quite different. They have similarities and overlaps, but there are quite some subtle differences that a color stone buyer should really keep in mind. So that is why I called this webinar Diamond versus Color Stone Grading, their differences. And then besides that, I just wanted to add 3 rare gemstones that you really need to know, because I think besides this, color stone and diamond stone grading, you really ought to know a few of these very cool and exotic and rare color gemstones. So I decided to put those into the presentation as well. Now, perhaps you attended the previous webinar, in which case, welcome. And you may see some overlap in some concepts or in some parts, but that's just because those are basic concepts and the newcomers need to know that. And if you attended last time, then, it may be a good reminder also to keep them in mind. And I will try and focus only on the basic differences between diamond grading and color stone grading, because otherwise it becomes way too long when we dive into subtleties and too much into details. So I try to not do that too much. Now, I wanted to start quickly with you by sharing this quote that I really love by Henri Matisse. Color was not given to us in order that we should imitate nature. It was given to us so that we can express our emotions. Because to me, why I like it is because the most powerful characteristic of color stones is really their color, right? And I did some research, and I noticed that color actually primes our behavior, which is really cool when you think of it. It's like red in nature, right? Some sort of red berry. It means, watch out, don't eat me, I'm poisonous, or something like that. And even I read about a study where the walls in a prison had been painted pink, and the male prison inmates apparently became more tranquil and more relaxed. Their muscles seem to relax, apparently. So color literally has a priming effect on our bodies even as well. No words are necessary to express emotions, right? It just expresses straight away without words. And the same applies to color gemstones. They speak to our primary intuitive senses, and they send out a signal to others as to who we are. And that's why I love color stones so much. So as you can tell, I'm slightly biased towards color stones over diamonds, but everybody obviously can decide what they prefer, right? But what I do find a pity, though, is that the reason why people often feel more comfortable with diamonds is simply because they have encountered them more often and they know more of them, as I said before. And this actually is due to the fact that diamond grading has a clear universal jargon, a language that has been established already in the 1940s by the GIA founder, Mr. Robert Shipley. And the GIA, if you don't know, is the Gemological Institute of America. And that is the biggest gemological lab basically in the world. And these guys basically invented the 4 C's, probably known to you. And they wanted to create a language that would help the diamond business and make it more trustworthy for consumers. That, of course, is their main goal, by creating universal language. And they achieve that by creating the 4 C's. So today, whether you buy actually a diamond in New York, in Antwerp, or even in Hong Kong, every trader will speak the same language and will use the same words. And as you can understand, as a result of that, this has also created a lot of trust for consumers around the world. So now we can say that really that language of the 4 C's has become the global universal standard and benchmark for diamond grading, which is really impressive when you think of it. So it has in fact created so much trust that now traders tend to do a lot of their diamond business only by viewing certificates. So there are big gem labs like the GIA. There are a few others, but I would highly recommend to only go for the GIA or another famous diamond lab in Antwerp called HRD. In my opinion, they have the most objective diamond certificates. But what is common business now is that traders, diamond traders around the world, can just swap certificates and sell and buy diamonds without ever having seen the stone, which is quite remarkable when you think of it. And the color stone business, on the other hand, totally lacks that aspect. They don't have a universal grading language simply because color grading is so much more difficult. I'll dive into that later. Now, and you understand that as a result of that obstacle, there isn't so much trust for color gemstones among consumers in the market as there is for diamonds. People may know the big 3, you know, the green emerald, the blue sapphire, and the red ruby. But if I ask them, like, what should we pay attention to when buying one of these stones, people actually don't really know. They may come with the 4 C's, and those are already the people who are a bit more advanced. Clarity, cut, color, carat weight, those are the 4 things we have to look at. I'm like, yes, but how do we use them? And people are a little bit lost there, which is totally understandable because it's a bit more tricky than diamond grading. So I think that's such a shame, that lack of information and knowledge, basically. And I do feel that just with a little bit more consumer knowledge, these precious color stones should really be on your radar because they are wonderful gift ideas and also investment ideas, but you have to know the differences. So here you quickly see our mission, which is that we hunt unique gems around the world and we provide a new adventure to our clients to actually help them discover the stone that really magnifies their essence. I really believe in that, as I told you before, that color really expresses who you are and sends out a signal to others as well. But first, let's make a quick trip to Bangkok. Why Bangkok? I wanted to share some brief anecdotes with you because I used to live in Bangkok. That's the place where I studied gemology. And Bangkok happens to be the world's trading hub of color gemstones in the world. So what Antwerp and New York and Mumbai and Tel Aviv are for the diamond business, that is what Bangkok is for everything that has color. So rubies, sapphires of all their colors, tourmalines, spinels, you name it. That is mainly sold in Bangkok. Now, what I thought was so funny and wonderful about the time I spent there, and I go back regularly to Bangkok, to my suppliers is, first of all, of course, the immense haggling mentality, right? I mean, even here when I'm sitting on the back of a motor taxi, which cost €1 basically, the tradition is that you haggle. You know, you have to go in and negotiate for everything, and the same applies to the gem industry there as well. I mean, they see you coming from the West, so I'm not saying that that straight away everything is, distrustful. No, but of course it's better as a consumer with everything. If you were to buy an expensive car or a piece of art, I recommend that you also do some research, and that really applies to color gemstones. You have to know a little bit what to ask and what to be mindful of before you get into that business, which may be very different from the world that you're coming from. And also, for instance, I used to sit in a restaurant around the gem building, basically, and I would often see, for instance, Indian gem dealers, because Bangkok, there is not only Thai gem dealers, but also Indian gem dealers, who happen to be one of the most ancient gem dealers in the world. They've been doing that business for a long time already, for several millennia. And also people from Afghanistan, Tajikistan, you name it. So it's very international and very interesting. But I would sit in a restaurant, for instance, with two Indian gentlemen passionately disagreeing over a delicious green curry about the quality of blue of a blue sapphire they had just seen a little while ago in a gem dealer's office. And they would really debate about, wait a second, that was definitely not royal blue I saw there. You know, it was a crazy price. And then the other guy would say, no, it was royal blue. And I'm going to make an offer tomorrow and you'll see he'll come down with the price. And just to indicate that these people, mainly men actually, which is funny because it's such a feminine product as well, but it's run by a lot of knowledgeable men and women, but a lot of men. They are so passionate about this unique and exclusive product, and their skills and knowledge is simply out of this world, really. And then here, let me go to the next one. So, as I told you before, it's the world's trading center for color gemstone. And also that color is not a small business in Thailand. It is serious business. It was in 2019 a $1.2 billion worth of their color gemstone export. So Bangkok is really the center in the world still today, although Hong Kong is trying to catch up, and they have the biggest fair in the world, which takes place a few times a year. It used to be also Bangkok that had the biggest fair, but that has been taken over by Hong Kong. But Bangkok is still the day-to-day trading hub for color gemstones, for sure. So I mentioned it's for rubies, sapphires, tourmalines, you name it. Also some diamonds, definitely. And the one stone that may be a little bit more excluded here is the emerald, because the main trading spot in the world for emeralds is still Colombia. Although I have to say, in Bangkok, you can also find a beautiful emerald if you want to. There are so many traders there. Now, what we're going to do, and my goal is, besides the basic grading differences of diamonds and color gemstones, I mentioned I would introduce you to some rare color gemstones. Some you may know, like the garnet gang, but you only may know one variety of garnet. Whereas in that group, there are some other varieties which are way more exclusive and exquisite, and which you may never have heard of before. So I would love to introduce you quickly to that other variety. Then the cocktail hour Tenzinite, a beautiful blue-violet stone. And then I will talk about the electric blue Paraiba tourmaline. I'll give you a peek into their relatively young history, tell you about their origin, their beauty, and why you'll love these specific gemstones. Now, at the end of this webinar, I'll share with you how I can help you choose your own precious jewel, if that interests you. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I hope I can keep an eye on that. And otherwise, forgive me, then we'll try to do it at the end. Now, let's get started with the basic grading differences between diamonds and gems. And first, what is a gemstone? And is a diamond even a gemstone or not? This was really funny because I always assumed that this was, that consumers would be aware of this, but no. so I realized this is a very important distinction to make. Now, a stone qualifies as gemstone when a precious stone possesses beauty, durability, and rarity. Now, these gemstones can then be split into two categories. We have the color gemstones on the one hand, and we have the colorless white diamonds on the other hand. So a diamond in that definition is also a gemstone. Let me show you if it works. Oh, it stopped working. That's very nice. Let me see how I go to the next slide. Anastasia, would you know what happened? Suddenly, let me see. We're back. Funny, something got frozen. So under the definition, a diamond is also a gemstone, sorry. So here you see what I mean. You have gemstones as the overall category, and diamonds and color gemstones simply belong to that same category. So to make a distinction between a diamond and a gemstone, that's not the right language to use. The right distinction to always make is between a diamond and a colored gemstone, or we also call them color stone. Also, to keep this in mind, when you go to a gem dealer's office, they will immediately tell if you're really a lay person or if you know a little bit more about it. And that's always just better for, to get the best price and to get the best piece, to be a little bit more prepared. So don't make that mistake. So don't say a diamond is not a gemstone. Diamonds apparently in the diamond business have done such a good job at marketing for several decades now, since the Second World War actually, that somehow many consumers have been brainwashed into thinking that diamonds are not a gemstone, that they're something else, that they're on some sacred rare planet and that they're something totally different. No, not true. Diamonds are also simply gemstones, but a different type, the white colorless type overall. Now, as you know, diamonds can also come in colors. Now, where does that fit in? We would never call these diamonds colored gemstones. We would refer to them as colored diamonds or fancy colored diamonds. Now, the color of diamonds, as you may know, is typically described and graded through the color grading scale that goes and starts from the letter D until Z. And this was also invented by the GIA, right? By the Gemological Institute of America. So they really defined for diamonds, how can we define their color? And they started by D until the letter Z. Now, the colors range from the best color, the most colorless or white diamond type, which is D, and then it goes through light yellow and brown, with Z being a heavily tinted yellow or brown diamond. But all these diamonds along this D to Z scale are still considered white diamonds, right? So a Z diamond is simply a heavily tinted white diamond, you should say. And what's also important to know is that diamonds in the D to Z range generally decrease in value as the color becomes more evident when you come more closer to the letter Z. Now, fancy color diamonds, which you see below there, is a totally other story altogether. These are yellow and brown diamonds that exhibit colors beyond the Z range. So that means that they are even more intense yellow or more intense brown than Z. Or these can be diamonds of another color altogether. And the least valuable of these other colors, least valuable, because I have to tell you that the fancy color diamonds are the most exclusive and expensive gemstones out there. It's actually fancy color diamonds at the top of the pyramid, then usually colored gemstones. Some of them, I mean, not amethyst or blue topaz, but we're talking about rubies, emeralds, certain spinels, certain tourmalines, stones like that. And then usually most colorless white diamonds only follow below that. So the least valuable of these fancy color diamonds are the intense yellow and brown ones. Then the red, the green, the purple, and the orange diamonds are considered the most rare out there. Some people have never even seen a red diamond. It's unbelievable. And followed by that is the pink and the blue diamonds. So the least rare are these very bright, intense yellow and brown ones. Pink and blue are a little bit more common, but the most rare are the red, the green, and the orange ones. Now, these fancy color diamonds, as I said, are extremely valuable. And what is funny to me, the first time I saw a few fancy color diamonds, the thing that struck me was that the colors tend to not be very intense or not even pure in color. They are rather muted in tone. For instance, a good quality pink diamond is so pale compared to a fine quality pink sapphire or pink spinel. I was really blown away by that. But of course, you can tell that I've been brainwashed by color gemstone teachers in Bangkok who really loved their color stone trade. So as a result, I've also become a little bit biased. But what is good to know is that color stones simply refers to another species of gemstones than diamonds, but it doesn't mean that they are of lesser quality, which many people seem to think. The moment they hear the word gemstone, which they connotate with color gemstone often, they tend to think they are cheaper and of lesser quality than diamonds. That is absolutely not true and a wrong generalization to make. Both diamonds and color gemstones can come in lower and in very high qualities, but they need to be graded always on a case-by-case individual basis and with their own respective grading system, right? So that's very important to keep in mind. Now, let's continue with that grading system a little bit more. I mentioned before the 4 C's, those words and that jargon really comes from the diamond world, right? From the GIA. Now, what does it stand for? You may know cut, clarity, color, and carat weight. To start with cut, which for diamonds is really the most important characteristic and aspect to look at actually. When we look at the cut and we have to assess and judge it, we actually look at several things at the same time. We have to look at the shape, which describes the outline of the diamond, actually the girdle outline of the diamond. Let me show you what I mean with the girdle. But when we talk about shape, we mean, is the diamond oval? Is it round? Is it cushion, octagonal, etc., right? So here you see what I mean on this slide. The girdle is this middle section of a gemstone. So we call it a girdle both in the diamond grading and in color stone grading. So that girdle obviously determines whether it's going to be a round or oval shape, etc. Now, the cutting style, that is also very important and also belongs to this cutting assessment that we have to make. The cutting style, the market standard for diamonds, you may know, is the round brilliant cut, right? So actually it's called the brilliant cut, but together with the shape, which is round, we call it the round brilliant cut. It's a round diamond with 57 facets, and I'll show it to you here as well. Here you see the typical, most popular and most standard diamond cut shape in the market, the round brilliant cut. The reason why it's this way is that it is a method of cutting that optimizes the appearance as well as the way how the diamond will reflect the light back out of the stone. And this round brilliant cut happens to be the most brilliant of all diamond cuts. So you may have heard of the term ideal cut, right? You can read it sometimes also on a certificate, or you may have heard about it in the trade. And this term refers to the attempt of cutters to cut a round diamond into the best proportions possible to achieve maximum brilliance. And today's modern brilliant cut, which has gone through a total evolution and development throughout history, actually, to get to the shape that it has today, really has maximized the ultimate brilliance and also fire possible to get it out of the stone. Fire means brilliance is like the brilliant flashes that come from within the diamond and reach your eye. And fire refers to a concept where white light, so normal daylight, for instance, that hits the stone, which is then refracted and reflected within the stone, and then it goes out of the stone again, as you see here in the perfect shape of a round diamond cut. It should go back here from the table facet and hit your eye, basically, when you look on the top of a diamond. This is how it should be. And fire means that when it has been cut so perfectly, and when you move your hand, you will see rainbow colors, the spectral colors of the rainbow, which together make up the white light. So what happens is that white light hits the diamond. It then, through the prism, actually, what happens within the stone, it is broken up into its constituent parts. So then when a lady moves her hand, or a gentleman, by the way, moves his or her hand, you will see these rainbow color flashes that shoot off a diamond. This is typical of a diamond. And this is also why you would want to have a diamond, because it doesn't have, I mean, most of them don't have color. So what you want from a diamond is to have it as colorless as possible, as white as possible, because only when a background is so neutral and so white are you able to see those rainbow flashes, right? So this is something that you cannot just take over and also apply to colored gemstones, because colored gemstones generally don't have this fire, as they call it. Why is that? Because colored gemstones have a body color. They tend to be yellow or red or green or orange or dark blue, or you name it. And that body color blocks this taking place of the breaking up of the white light. So fire is typically a concept that really belongs to diamonds. There are a few exceptions. There are a few color stones that actually also have fire, which is amazing, but I'll tell that another day. So that is why diamonds, and this cut in particular, is so well loved, because they are desired for their sparkle, right? That's their main asset. And that's why cutters have always tried to invent a cut that will have most brilliance, and this is the one. Interesting to know is that for a rough diamond to achieve this perfect round, brilliant result, a rough stone loses about 40 to 60% of the original. So you need to cut away a lot of stone, which, you know, most cutters don't actually like, because weight is very important when it comes to price at the end of the day. But anyway, the market wants round, brilliant cuts. So a lot of stone has to be cut away to make the stone perfectly round. Now, the third aspect, when we talk about cut, we're still talking about cut, that is important to look at with diamond grading is the proportions. So also here, the goal of the faceted cut of any diamond really is to create the most brilliance and fire. That is always what a cutter will try to do. So when we talk about the cut quality of a diamond, it actually refers to several things that you should keep in mind. Its proportions, its shape, cutting style, but also symmetry. You know, are things in perfect symmetry all around the diamond, top, bottom, etc. And the polish. Has it been perfectly polished, or do you actually still see some scratches of the polishing machine on the facet, on the stone, on the small facets of a diamond? That's not what we want, right? So all those aspects have to be taken into account when we talk about and assess the cut. Also, and this is where I want to show you here this bit on the right, still related to cut, is how deep or shallow a diamond is. Very important, because when it is too shallow, as you can see here, the light that hits the diamond will seep out straight from the bottom of the stone. So actually, when you look on top of a diamond that is too shallow, or also a color gemstone for that matter, then you can actually, if you put a newspaper below it and you move the stone with your tweezers across the newspaper, you will be able to read the letters of the newspaper. And that's not what we want. You should not be able to read a book through your gemstone, right? So that is what happens when it has been cut too shallow. If it has been cut too deep, it will also leak out, but in another direction, and it tends to become very dark and very deep. It's not very attractive. So that's also something to be aware of. This is all related to cut, so you can see how many aspects we have to take into account. But as I said, this is the most important C of diamond grading. And I also added at the bottom some fancy shapes. Now, fancy shapes refer to any diamond that is in another shape than the round, brilliant cut one. So these are just 8 ones that I could find and that are the most popular ones: the princess cut, the oval, the marquise, pear shape, cushion shape, emerald shape, the radiant, and the heart shape. So all of these we call fancy shapes. Now, if we then go to the next C, color, there we refer to, as you may remember from the previous slide, when we talked about you know, the colors of diamonds D to Z, and then also this other level of color in diamonds, the fancy color diamonds. When we refer to the color in diamonds, we actually refer in the first place to its colorlessness or its perfect whiteness. So the whiter a diamond, the higher the price will be, right? That's the first group of exclusive diamonds. So D color is the best color you can get. It will be totally white and it will be pricey. And that's what you have to keep in mind. And it's not always necessary for a consumer or a lay person to even go for the D cut. There's a lot of things you can, you know, you can think of and keep in mind if you are going to go diamond shopping. And one of them is this, that you can go often several grades lower, because a lay eye, me included, most people who don't deal in diamonds day to day, don't see the difference between D or E or F or G. Can also be perfect, or, you know, if you can afford it, go for D or E, but it's definitely not necessary. F or G can also be wonderful white colorless stones. So it really depends on your budget and what you want, but you can also, for instance, say, okay, I compromise a little bit on the color, but I want a stone that is super clear from the inside, that has no inclusions. Or you can say, well, it doesn't have to be perfect D color, but I want a big stone. So I want a big size stone, and I can't afford that in D. So I have to go a few grades lower than that. So you have to see how that goes. But D is, you know, the stone, the maximum that you want to be able to get as close as possible as you can get to. Then clarity simply means the lack of inclusions. And I would say that cut and color are more important in diamond grading than clarity. Also here you can compromise a little bit. And when it comes to inclusions in a white diamond, of course, you want to be sure that you don't have a big black crystal that sits in the middle of your diamond. So when you set it in a ring, it's obvious. Of course, you don't want that. So you can have some inclusions in a diamond, but you try to get them in the bottom part of your diamond, which is this part. So this is the girdle. Everything above the girdle we call the crown, the top of the diamond, and everything below the girdle here we call the bottom or the pavilion of the diamond. So ideally, you want to try to accept a diamond that has some inclusions, but then have it at the bottom part of your diamond or close to the girdle, because if you set a ring, the ring will go around the girdle, so the inclusion won't be easily visible when you look at it from the top. And then we have carat weight, which refers to the size of gemstones. And a carat actually refers to 1/5 of a gram. So 0.2 gram, that is what 1 carat is. And here also, quickly going back to color, what is interesting is here you see D, which is totally white, and Z, which is a very heavily tinted yellow or brown diamond, right? And this will be different with color stone grading, because diamond graders always put their diamonds upside down, you see? And this is also one of the reasons why color stone grading is so complex, because with color stone grading, you always have to put the stone in the right direction. So you put the top up above like this, right? Then you put your eyes above the table facet, as we call it. This is the table facet, because only then can we really assess the brilliancy flashes of the stone, of the color, and we can judge the color correctly, more objectively, actually. This is not really the best way to view a color of the stone, but with diamonds, this is just how it's done. And then I wanted to show you here quickly a certificate of the GIA. So our Gemological Institute of America, I can barely speak. And here you see what it looks like, and really how objective it is all organized. You have a report number, the shape and cutting style, round, brilliant. They will put the measurements there. Then, of course, the carat weight, the color grade. So in this case, it happens to be a D. The clarity grade, which happens to be internally flawless. When you have a look here on the right, it explains it all. So when we take a look at the clarity scale, this is the typical way how diamonds are graded. When it comes to their clarity, you may know this. So flawless, internally flawless, those are the very best. So then a diamond doesn't have any inclusions inside, either with the naked eye, or even when you look at the stone with a loupe, it may be totally flawless, which is amazing, but as you can understand, pricey. And the more inclusions it has, the lower we go on the scale. So you have VVS1 and 2, very, very small inclusions, VS1, VS2, very small inclusions, slightly included 1 and 2, and included 1, 2, 3. So those are the stones with the most inclusions. And what they will usually do is here, but this is just a sample, on this circle where they now put their logo, basically, they would usually have a computer image of the diamond, the top and the bottom view of the diamond, and they would have indicated where an inclusion would be. So they would just put a black dot on the left side or in the center of the diamond or next to the girdle, exactly where the inclusions are. So it's really a great way of seeing straight away where there are inclusions. The color grade you see here as well, it's DEF, which they call colorless, and then it goes down all the way to Z, which is the heavily tinted color diamonds, right? And then also the cutting scale, the best you can obtain on a certificate of the GIA is excellent cut. And below that, it's very good, good, fair, and poor. So this is how they organize it on in their system and in their reports. And here you can see they will judge the polish, the symmetry, and the fluorescence, and things like that. So it's very complete, and you can understand that if a trader in Hong Kong uses this certificate, in Belgium, in New York, or Latin America, everybody understands this language. And that's what enabled this business to trade diamonds without ever even viewing the stone, which is totally unimaginable in the color gemstone business. But in the diamond business, this is done. Even as a consumer, you could do it. I would still prefer to see the stone in real life, but you know, this is such a global benchmark that you could do it. I mean, it's so trustworthy in the trade, yeah, that people just do business only with the certificate. I'm just seeing whether we covered all. And yeah, what I wanted to show you with this explanation of the diamond 4 Cs is that within this 4 C framework, you can understand that even a novice consumer can understand that the larger the carat weight, the better the cut, the cleaner the stone on the inside, and the whiter the color, the more the stone will be worth, right? So that is why this 4 C system is so amazing and created so much trust in the consumer market, and why everybody seems to refer to that, even applies it to color stone grading, because it just feels comfortable and we're used to it, and it works for diamonds. Now, when we go to color stone grading, however, we can indeed also use these 4 Cs, and we do. Some authors argue that we may even say, well, for color stone grading, we actually need 6 Cs. And maybe there are some other considerations on top of that as well. So you can see that, that there are more obstacles there and more considerations to take into account. Now, let me quickly take a look, because there was one last thing I wanted to tell you about diamond grading, because I think it may be helpful if you are going to shop for a diamond, who knows, right? That there are some traders, some diamond dealers, who on top of those 4 Cs also like to be clear about 2 other considerations. They're actually part of the 4 Cs. They form part of the judgment. One is fluorescence, and the other one is the girdle thickness. Fluorescence is important because about 1/3 of all diamonds worldwide actually fluoresce. So which means when they put an ultraviolet light on top of the diamond, or even when you walk in the sunlight or in the daylight with your diamond, with UV light in it, right? The stone may fluoresce. And usually it will fluoresce blue. And now what the GIA has said is the following. They said some trade professionals think that blue fluorescence enhances a diamond's appearance, especially diamonds in the I to M color grade. So it's the medium color quality kind of, right? So in those cases, fluorescence may enhance a diamond's appearance. Because bluish fluorescence can make a faint yellowish diamond appear more white. That's what we want, right? So in that case, fluorescence can be a good thing. Now, the opposite is true for diamonds with higher color grades. So diamonds that are D till H color grade, when they have a bluish fluorescence, they're often considered less desirable in the trade because some people believe that it will create a hazy or oily appearance. So also when a lady goes outside, you know, in daylight or in sunlight, the stone may really appear a little bit oily, greasy, hazy. It may be dull. It may lack a bit of sparkle purely because of that fluorescence. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. And then the girdle thickness, you remember, right? Which is the side of a cutting style of a diamond. In a round brilliant, it's the round shape. And when that girdle is too thin, you have a problem, but also when it's too thick, you will have a problem. Because when it's too thin, the diamond may easily chip. We don't want that. And when the girdle is too thick, it may be hard to set the stone properly in a diamond ring because the prongs are typically the tools to hold the diamond around the girdle, right? But when the girdle is too thick, the diamond can loosen a little bit in the prongs, and it will be difficult for a goldsmith to tighten it well. So that's another thing for you to just keep in mind. Now, when it comes to color stone grading, there are definitely some differences with all the points I just mentioned before. So while cut, clarity, color, and carat weight are still definitely important, the most important thing when we grade color stones is color. I think you would have guessed that. It's color, color, color. The general rule is simple. The more vibrant a color of a color gemstone, the more valuable the stone will be. So the redder the red of a ruby, the bluer the blue of a blue sapphire, or the more yellow a yellow sapphire will be, the more expensive it will be. Because these incredibly vibrant colors are super rare in nature. They're very hard to find. So when you find something, well, not you, but a miner finds a stone in the earth that is already of such good, natural, vibrant color, I mean, it will be sold straight away because there's a lot of people who hunt on stones like that because they're just so rare. So the more intense the color, the more valuable the stone. That's the most important thing to keep in mind of all the 4 Cs. Now, the principles for the rest that I mentioned with respect to the diamond grading judgment that we have to make also apply to color gemstones, but unfortunately, they're not so easily quantifiable. for color gemstones. So that's where the tricky stuff begins, right? Now, when we start with this, the letter C that stands for color, what is important is the uniformity, the beauty, and the quality of the color. That is the most important to assess the quality and the value of the overall stone even. And we tend to judge color by assessing three things. We look at the color, which is called the hue. So we have to determine, is it red, is it blue, is it yellow, or, which we always do, we look at the primary color and the secondary color. So for instance, we say it is orangey red, or a stone is bluish, violetish blue, which means that blue is the main primary color of a stone, but it has a hint of violet in it, violetish blue. So violet is the secondary color and blue is then the primary color. So those distinctions have to be made. That is when we assess the color, the hue of a stone. Then we have to look at the saturation, which means the intensity and the vibrancy of a color. This is what I meant, right? The redder the red, the bluer the blue, the better. That really refers to the saturation of a color and will result in a much higher price, the better it is. And then we go to tone. And when we look at the tone within the color judgment, we have to look at the presence of blackness in a stone. So you may think, ooh, I want a blue stone that doesn't have any black overtones in it, right? But actually it is good in almost every color, except pink or light yellow, of course. But in every vibrant color, you want some black tone in it because it deepens the saturation of the color stone. So a bit of tone is great. So we look at saturation, tone, and hue, the color. So that's already only when we look at the color aspect. And then for you, perhaps some interesting side information. If you want to collect the dream team of colors and color gemstone for the famous stones I'm referring to only here, then you would have to go for these colors. Now, if you want a ruby, you have to go for pigeon blood red. Now, have to go, it's a little bit more, of a funny way of putting it, because a lot of gemologists will say, okay, this is nonsense, Eva, what you're talking about, because pigeon blood, that color that refers to the best ruby color that you can find in rubies. And the most beautiful pieces were historically found only in Burma, today's Myanmar. And it is a fluorescent red with a drop of pink in it. Is totally amazing. But the problem is that a lot of people who deal in rubies call their red stones pigeon blood rubies. So it has become a bit of a brand name and it has really devalued the term, honestly. So way too many people use the word pigeon blood for a stone, for a ruby. That is really not pigeon blood red. But in any case, just for you to know the term, that pigeon blood is some sort of Valhalla in the world of rubies. So if you were to go to the best ruby, you would want to go for pigeon blood ruby from Burma, preferably as well. Now, if you would want the best blue sapphire color, you would have to go to Kashmir in India. Although those perfect blue stones are no longer mined today. It was only in the 19th century, and this mine in India produced the most intense velvety blue, soft blue, but very vibrant blue stones that the world had ever seen, but the mine is exhausted already. However, there are still some stones that you may find in auctions or things like that, but prices go through the roof. Beautiful stone, but that is considered still the best blue stone. Kashmir, and after that, blue sapphire from Burma, Myanmar, today's Myanmar as well. Now, and in other color stones that come in variety of colors, for instance, tourmalines, that has the most colors available in nature. Any color you can think of, tourmaline has in its color box, or spinels or other fancy color sapphires, because you can have sapphires in other colors than blue. They exist in pink, in purple, in orange, in green, in white, you name it. So in any of those other colors, you would have to assess it on an individual basis, every stone, to know what is the best. But always the most intense color, the better the stone will be regarded in the trade, and the higher the price you will have to pay. But don't forget, you always have your own personal taste, of course. So perhaps you don't even like super vibrant, intensely colored blue stones. Perhaps you like pastel, light color blue stones or light pink. That's totally fine. And they happen to be a little bit less expensive as well. So that's good for you. But don't always feel that you have to follow all these dogmas. If you don't like those dark colors, or they're not always dark, but those vibrant colors, but you prefer something light, it goes better with your skin tone or with your style, then go for that, of course. But this is generally how the market assesses it. Now, with this color, the letter C for color, this is already where the problems start with color stone grading, right? First of all, there are the objections from within the trade that make this whole color stone grading so much more complex than diamond grading. Because of these objections that come from within the trade itself. Why? Well, color gemstone traders, for instance, really abhor the thought of thinking that their business may become like the diamond business. They really don't like that. They hate that idea that also in the color stone business, you could just trade certificates without ever having seen the stone. Right? They really don't like that idea. They feel proud of their ancient ways, how to assess color, and they are incredibly skilled at judging color as well. You should know that your eye is a muscle, so you have to have seen thousands of color stones in your life, day in, day out, in order to really become good at it. And these guys and ladies in Bangkok are really good at it because they have seen the lowest of qualities, the highest of qualities, and they have seen a vast variety of stones, plus treated stones and untreated stones. So they have seen so much quantity that we in the West can never ever have seen because we are not the trading hub. They are. So they are incredibly skilled in judging color, which is not easy, by the way. So in any case, they don't like the idea of it becoming anything like the diamond trade. And secondly, they also feel that if there would be a universal language, that they would give away some of their trade secrets, right? They don't really like that idea either, that everybody would know how this difficult business is done and nobody can do this, which is true to a certain extent. I mean, you have to know a little bit what you're doing, but yes, there are some objective concepts that you can keep in mind and you can also practice. So for sure you can be prepared a little bit better than knowing nothing. So those are just the objections from within the trade. And then there is the external situation that makes color stone grading so much more complex. It is, as a famous gemologist has said, it's an American gentleman who has been living in Bangkok for a very long time. He's expert in spinel, in ruby, and sapphire, has founded his own amazing gem lab as well. And he's really a famous author and acknowledged gemologist all over the world. And he has said, there is no language useful for communicating the overall appearance of a gemstone. Because how can you describe a visual image that is so complex, right? Color is subjective. That is what makes it so difficult. What may be orangey red to me, so red with a hint of orange in it, you may say, well, you know what? I don't agree at all, Eva. To me, it has a hint of pink in it. So that's already where the entire trouble starts when it comes to grading just the color. And let me go back. I will explain a little bit more about color later. Let me see, what is the time actually? How far are we? Okay, we're still on time, guys. That's good. That's good. If you have any questions, do let me know in between. I know it's a lot of information to take in probably. Let me see if I know how the chat works. That's also very convenient. And otherwise I will take a look at the end. But you understand how fascinating and intriguing, but also how difficult color grading, that's only one C, is when it comes to color stone grading. Now, when we go to the next C, clarity, which is also considered quite relevant when it comes to color stone grading. As I mentioned before, with diamonds, clarity refers to a stone's lack of inclusions, right? Now, inclusions in color stones are very, very common, more common than in diamonds. In fact, I remember in Bangkok that when we would grade rubies and sapphires, our teachers would have encyclopedias, I'm not kidding, this big, this thick, several parts, just filled with photos with and information on inclusions just found in rubies and sapphires. They belong to the same species, they belong to the corundum species, and there would be encyclopedia full with just information on inclusions on corundum. That is also one of the reasons why a lot of color gemstone dealers tend to specialize in one or two stones. Unless not everyone, but many dealers tend to specialize, for instance, only in corundum. So they do only red rubies and blue sapphires or some other color sapphires, but they may totally leave out tourmaline, spinels, and other stones like that, because there's so much to know just about this one gemstone already. So it makes it very complicated. And also then, besides the scientific information or your skills, it's also, of course, the market information that you need to be aware of. So it's practically impossible as a trader to know about, or to follow very well all the prices in the market for like 20 stones, right? So that's why most dealers focus on just a few gemstones, or it's an emerald dealer or something like that. Now, as said, inclusions are very common in color gemstones, and funnily enough, they only influence the price to a certain extent only. That is, unless the stone is clean, we call that eye clean. So just when you look at it with the naked eye, you have no tools, you just look at a stone with your naked eye. And if you don't see inclusions, that's quite rare. So it will fetch a premium. The price will go up. And also opaque stones tend to be a lot cheaper than transparent stones. So as mentioned, generally clarity is judged with the naked eye, or sometimes with a loupe that will increase or by 10 times. So that's usually how it's done. In the field, or what I noticed is that the best gemologists or gem dealers, they indeed are able to judge color stones just with their naked eye or with a loupe. That's it. No fancy microscopes or complicated machines. These people are so trained that they can do it with good daylight and a loupe, or just with the naked eye. Now, for instance, to give an example, emeralds, now that happens to be a color gemstone that is always included, seriously always. And in that case, when we know in the market that that is the standard, emeralds are always included, then that is how it is. So that does not necessarily negatively impact the price, because everybody knows it's impossible to find an emerald without inclusions. So if you do find an emerald that is relatively clean, the price will be high. But all the other emeralds are considered kind of normal when they are included. And also try to avoid, when talking about clarity with color gemstones, try to avoid using diamond words. So we don't use any more flawless or internally flawless or those kind of words. That's really diamond business. We would say things like the stone is loupe clean. That's what we look at it through a 10 times loupe. Or we say eye clean, or it has small inclusions, or it's included. When it comes to the cut, also here the intricacy of a cut does not always affect the beauty and the reflection of the light in the stone in the same way that it will for a white diamond or a color diamond. So also, like with inclusions and cuts, I can even go a step further. Often in the color gemstone business, color gemstones don't have a good cut. Not at all when you compare it to diamonds. But this is just the nature of the beast. And the most important aspect for you to look at is always the color. So if you have a fantastic red ruby or blue sapphire and the color is amazing and the cut is comme ci comme ça, and the clarity, it has a few inclusions in there, which is totally natural and normal, then the price can still be incredibly high. That would be unthinkable in the diamond world because their cut is the most important aspect that we look at, right? It has no color. cut is what we're there for with the diamond. We want it to sparkle as much as it can. We want it to be as white as we can, unless you go for super expensive, fancy color diamonds. But cut is most important for diamonds. Not so much so, same with clarity, not so much so for color gemstones. And also when it comes to carat weight in color gemstones, it is generally indeed the case that the bigger the stone, the more valuable the stone will be, right? But always look at the quality of the other aspects. Because if you have a smaller gemstone that has a way better color and that also happens to have a great cut and is also pretty clean inside, then that will be way more valuable than a bigger stone of the same family, which doesn't have a good color, which is heavily included and has a really awful cut, you know? So then the smaller stone will be of much higher quality. So it depends on the overall quality. Then, to make things even more complicated, in addition to those 4 C's that we use similarly to in the diamond grading business, but we put emphasis on different aspects, as I hope you may understand now a little bit better. In addition to those 4 C's, we may add 2 more C's in color gemstone grading. And one, you could call it change, I just had to start with the C, change through enhancement. Most color gemstones have been treated or enhanced, as we call it. So for instance, 90 to 95% of all rubies and blue sapphires have been heat treated. That is not a bad thing at all, because without this heat treatment, there wouldn't even be enough rubies and blue sapphires in the market for consumers to buy from or to choose from. They are so rare. And also diamonds, by the way, can be treated. So don't forget about that. They can be irradiated and several other things as well. So there is another aspect that we need to look at with color stone grading, which is their treatments. How have they been treated? What type of treatment, how heavily treated, and things like that. And this ideally is mentioned on the certificate. But know that it is not necessarily a bad thing. It would be too much for this presentation, but also know that every stone has its own treatment. So blue sapphires and rubies tend to be heated, and emeralds, for instance, cannot be heated because they're so brittle. The stone is pretty weak that if you heat it, it may break. So emeralds are typically oiled to make their green better and to fill their cracks. So many stones have their own type of treatment. Now, in the 6th C that we may have to add with color gemstones is the country of origin, which is also important for color gemstones. That is, if you like it, if you happen to be an investor and you really are a collectionneur of color gemstones, like people who love good wine, they really insist that the wine or the color gemstone come from a certain region in the world. Like what I just said before, these people are the ones who would really want a pigeon blood ruby from Burma. And they would want a blue sapphire from Kashmir or from Burma. And they would want a pink spinel, for instance, from Mahenge in Tanzania and East Africa, because those are the most vibrant colors you can find. And people know when you have that origin stated on their certificate, they can ask more for it. So this is way more important for color stones than it is for diamonds generally, because diamonds usually don't have any origin at all. Now, what you should know that this origin bit, I mean, gemologists generally are taught to ignore origin, because we should be able to assess gemstones objectively and just give any gemstone a fair chance, right? That comes into your hands. So whether it's a ruby from Burma or from Mozambique, we should judge it in the same way. And if the stone of Mozambique is much more beautiful red and all the other C's are also fulfilled, then of course we would give it a higher grade and we would say, now this stone is more expensive than the stone from Burma, which I don't think is pigeon blood at all. It has a lot of inclusions. It's not sparkly. It's not brilliant at all. So I would go for the stone from Mozambique. So we try to ignore origin and just look at the individual qualities of the gemstone. That is way more important, I would think, to just always go for beauty, first of all, if you are a normal consumer, and what you like. And then secondly, if you are an investor and you really only want to go for certain stones from certain regions, then go for it, because it's a wonderful hobby to have, right? Now, this is much more important also than for diamonds, but there are a few exceptions. There are two origins that I just remembered from the top of my head that are important also for diamonds and that make the price go through the roof, which are pink Argyle diamonds that come from Argyle in Australia. It's a famous mine, the Argyle mine in Australia, and it is known, they've done such great marketing as well. It is known for their beautiful or very rare pink diamonds that only very once in a while come out of that mine. But those pink diamonds pay for the entire production of the whole mine, although the rest is just brownish that comes out of the mine. Those pink diamonds are really well marketed and they're lovely. And another famous diamond whose origin is famous are the Golconda diamonds. These are ancient diamonds from India, from the region Golconda. And this was also considered still today one of the best diamond qualities in the world. Some of the most famous diamonds in museums or worn by royalty still today, these days, are Golconda type diamonds. These are very white, large-sized diamonds. The mine is exhausted already also for a long time, but still today, this region has some sort of fame attached to it. So those are what I would consider the 6 C's. So you see how much fun it is, all those letters, and how complicated it is. Let me see how we are with the time, guys. Are we still on time? I'm just seeing some of the questions. Alessandro asked about a reference for a book on gemstones. Now, Alessandro, if I were you, I would read as much as you could by Mr. Richard Hughes. I'm not sure I mentioned his name before, actually, because this is the American gentleman gemologist that I referred to before. And yeah, this gentleman is amazing. He has written and created the most beautiful books with photography that is absolutely out of this world. And a passionate color gemstone lover, author, and adventurer as well. So I will see if I can put that in the chat quickly. That is by Richard Hughes, and also by a certain Mr. Vincent Pardieu. You should follow him. He's amazing. He is some sort of Indiana Jones. A Frenchman also based in Bangkok, and he's a world famous field gemologist. So this gentleman would actually go to very remote places all around the world and take a look at the potential of the gemstones that come out of that mine, right? Dangerous job also. And but he has great videos. And I see also that someone else, Valerie, has a question about seller transparency. I see what you mean, seller transparency. Yeah, that's a tricky one, Valerie. When it comes to diamonds, there is a... Oh, wait, I see the question now. How much of an increase is there in treating versus all natural stone, and how transparent was it? For example, how for a ruby, I might have to ask if I think so. And then, wait a second, how much of an increase is there in... Exists a school or study how to cut diamonds? Lena, that's an easy question. Yes, there exists a school to study diamonds. That is the GIA. The Gemological Institute of America is the most renowned school for you to study on how to grade diamonds. If you wanted to study more on how to grade and price color gemstones, I would highly recommend the school that I came from in Bangkok. No commercial here at all. And that is called AIGS, the Asian Institute of Gemological Sciences. Why? Because I believe it happens to be in the heart of the trading hub. So I think the people who teach there just have the most experience also on pricing, which is very cool. So for color stones, I would go to Bangkok if you have the time and the possibility. And for diamonds, it's a little bit easier because the GIA is so big and they have schools all around the world. So you can see if there's one in your area. But Valerie's question, how much of an increase is there in treating versus all natural stones? Now, yeah, that's what I said, right? So with rubies and blue sapphires, it sounds scary, but really it's not. 90 to 95% of all those stones have been treated, heat treated. And heat treatment is a totally acceptable and okay treatment. It improves the color of stones that may have been of a lower quality. It may improve the color, it may reduce inclusions inside the stone, and thereby it may increase the price and quality of your stone because it is permanent. So the change won't disappear. So that's a big percentage, but it's totally normal because again, the percentage of gem quality stones, color gemstones that come out of the earth is so minimal. It is so small that if everybody would want a blue sapphire tomorrow, there wouldn't be enough. That problem does not exist with diamonds, right? There are more than enough diamonds in the world to satisfy demand today and tomorrow. More than enough. There is plenty of stock that they keep in stock to kind of work with the prices in the market. And you should know that most diamonds in the market up to 3-4 carats are of average quality. So, you know, a D diamond is incredibly rare. Most diamonds are not D. So there's more than enough quantity of diamonds. So I hope that helps a lot. I quickly have to go. I mean, let me see, what else can we add before it's time to go? So I hope you got a little bit more of a feeling for why color stone grading is more complex than diamonds, because we have to look at different aspects and characteristics, and we may have to add 2 more C's, enhancements, treatments we have to look at also with diamonds, by the way, don't forget that actually. And also the origin, which is important for color gemstones, if you like that, but be aware of it. And I just wanted to show you, let me, here you see a few color gemstones from my collection actually, a Tenzinite blue violet stone, spinels here, pastel colored stone, incredibly rare and beautiful historic stone. Here you see it in bright pink. Here you see one in lavender pink. This is a bright pink spinel. This is a beautiful neon mint tourmaline from Mozambique, if I'm not mistaken, incredibly well cut. A pink tourmaline, beautiful one, a very rare orange garnet. Now here you see an example of a GIA report for color gemstone. So you'll see the shape, oval, it's a brilliant cut. It's a round stone, which is quite rare, as a matter of fact, for color stones. And you can always ask for a GIA certificate, both for diamonds and for color stones, but know that their focus and their specialty is in diamonds. This is just to show you quickly some examples of diamond reports. I realize, guys, that I quickly still have to go through 3 gemstones, but we'll do this super quick. So hang on in there with me, because these stones you really don't want to miss. So we finished the basic grading differences between diamonds and color gemstones. And now I would quickly like to introduce you to 3 stones, namely this one, the green Severite garnet. Beautiful, luscious green. It's totally different gemstone than the one you may know, the dark red garnet. The problem with garnet is the name, because the moment I mention the word garnet, most people walk away from me. I'm like, wait, because people only remember this incredibly dark red gemstone that our grandmothers may have had, or that you may have known from antique jewelry. It's so dark red that it actually looks black. Perhaps I have a photo of it. Do I here? Yeah, you'll see here. This it's super black, and only when you put a torch over it or you go into strong daylight will you be able to see some red flashes. But that's not the best quality garnet there is, guys. You have to know that since the 60s, new gemstones have been discovered, especially in East Africa. So this gemstone has been discovered in 1967 by a Scottish gemologist, Mr. Campbell Bridges, who was a consultant for Tiffany's. And he was taking a walk in Tanzania, and apparently he was charged by buffalo, and he fell into a gully, and there he saw some greenish rocks glistening about. And soon after, Bridges, together with Tiffany, introduced this beautiful garnet stone to the world. This beautiful stone is relatively young, so you can see it has a hard time to compete with the ancient emerald, its green competitor, its main green competitor. I personally think this stone is far more beautiful and of higher quality than an emerald, because as I said before, you may remember, emerald tends to be very brittle. It has a lot of inclusions, and emerald doesn't sparkle because it has so many inclusions. It's a very dull stone. It can be beautiful green, but it's a bit dull. This Severite garnet has been called the wild green beauty by Mr. Richard Hughes and Vincent Pardieu, the two gentlemen I mentioned before in the chat, experts in all these new stones as well. And why? Because already when they take it out of the ground, its quality is stunning, that nothing has to be done to it, unlike emeralds, which have to be heavily treated. They tend to be oiled, and sometimes they add resin to it to bring out their beauty. This stone only has to be cut and polished. It has an incredible sparkle because it has a higher refractive index, but I won't bother you with that. Just take my word, it has a much higher sparkle and brilliance than emerald. It tends to be a bit cold, as we say, because an emerald is a bit softer, a bit satiny, but I prefer this sparkle of this green stone. Incredibly high quality stone, and unfortunately even more rare than emeralds. So we finally found another alternative for emerald, which tends to be super expensive. We found the green garnet in the 1960s, and then it's even more rare than emerald. So that's not very helpful, but it's a beautiful stone. It is used, don't only take my word for it, it's used by the best jewelry houses in the world. Louis Vuitton, high jewelry, Christian Dior, high jewelry, Chopard, Chanel, you name it. They use this stone in their red carpet collections. That is how amazing this stone is, because it also has funky colors. Here you see, I have to go really quickly now because I know we're pressing for time. Found originally in Tanzania, Kenya. So it's on the border with Kenya and Tanzania, and a bit in Madagascar. A stunning ring by Chanel here, and a cuff by Tiffany's. So it's really a well-buried secret, unfortunately, that nobody knows, or very few people know about this gorgeous stone. So the colors can range from forest green to grass or leafy green to watery green, but the market favors the bluish green stones, so if they have the hint of blue in it. But you know, take my word for it, even the mint stone, like in this Chanel ring, is absolutely out of this world. So I highly recommend for you to keep this stone in mind. And so, as I said, while you love it, this is not your typical garnet. It's not at all the same quality as the dark red garnet, which is the most common garnet, because since that's an ancient stone, it was known already in Roman times as well. This stone is only known in the market since the 1960s, and is another beauty altogether. And as I said, it's one of the last wild green beauties that has been discovered very recently. Loved by most gemologists because it has no treatment at all. I forgot to mention that. It's only cut and polished and no treatment. So the stone is pure natural beauty, which is incredibly rare. You hit gemstone jackpot when you find a color gemstone that has great color and didn't have any subsequent treatments. And this is the one that you have to keep in mind. It's so beautiful. Then I'll quickly go to number 2, the violet blue Tenzinite, also brought onto the market by Tiffany's, also discovered in the 1960s in Tanzania, you may have guessed. It was a Maasai tribesman, apparently, who stumbled across some striking blue-violet crystals that grew from the earth after a bushfire. So there was a natural heat treatment that happened there in nature. And then suddenly, these gemstones that originally can be brownish or whitish turned into the most amazing violetish blue. And he alerted then a local fortune hunter who initially thought to have found a new blue sapphire mine, but he actually didn't know that he unearthed one of the newest gemstones in the world, the Tenzinite. Tiffany's also here saw its potential, started a big publicity campaign, and yeah, what many people don't know, which is funny, is that Tiffany's, of which everybody thinks that it's a diamond brand, actually has been a great company to promote certain rare color gemstones. They were behind the push onto the market of the green Severite garnet that we saw before, and also promoted this gemstone, and also a few others even. So many people don't know that. You may want to keep it in mind, because sometimes Tiffany's, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Tenzinite, they come out with a collection with beautiful earrings. It's very rare. You don't see it a lot because they all focus mainly on diamonds, which I think is such a pity. So hopefully now that they will also focus a little bit more on their color stone history, actually, which they help to create a market for. Now, as I said, discovered in Tanzania, still the only place in the world where the stone can be found today. And it's also called by some dealers the generational stone, because some dealers think that it is likely to become extinct in this one generation. So if you find one and it's beautiful, you may want to keep it in mind. Beautiful stone. You do not want to use this stone, though, in a ring for everyday wear. Unlike that Severite garnet, which can handle that, this is a stone that you want to keep for a cocktail ring or beautiful earrings or a necklace. Also, the third and last stone I want to show you, also use that for cocktail moments, because it's a little bit less hard and it may be a bit more fragile, especially for rings. Again, this is also totally normal. Every stone has its own pros and cons. Also, diamonds are not bulletproof. They can also chip and break. Don't forget that. While you'll love it, because it's rarer than diamonds. In fact, it's considered about 100 times more rare than a diamond. The color is stunning, so it's a great alternative for the often more expensive blue sapphire. And the quality of the stone is wonderful. The color is amazing. As I said, the hardness is a little bit less, but don't let that stop you. This is the last one, electric blue Paraiba, found even later in history. In the 1980s in Brazil, in the state of Paraiba, the stone was so electric and vivid blue that it caused a frenzy in the gemstone market. The moment it entered the world's stone market, people in the West and in Japan especially tend to love it and immediately fell for this stone. Prices went up like crazy, and then the mine was exhausted. So that was short but sweet. But then luckily, the stone has been discovered, a similar stone has been discovered around 2000 in Mozambique and Nigeria. And today, most Paraiba tourmalines on the market come from Nigeria and Mozambique. And they may also use the word Paraiba tourmaline if certain conditions have been fulfilled by a gem lab who has to judge the stone. But that is totally in order. And I also have a few Paraibas in my collection. Incredibly blue stone. Some people, when they see it, think it's fake. It's not. That's how it is. It's literally electric blue. Here you see some of the places where it's found, but as said, yeah, very rare. It's electric blue, green, or violet. Very intense fluorescent color because of the copper and the manganese in it. This stone is even more rare than diamonds than the previous Tenzinite. For every 10,000 diamonds that are found, they find one gem quality Paraiba, this stone. Incredibly rare. So you see also here, Louis Vuitton has a beautiful, amazing ring, and other pieces you see here. Of course, renowned for that electric glow and that incredible saturation. So I had to fly through the end, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you liked it and that it was informative, and that you got some good tips and information while you were here. And of course, I'd love to know, did you have a favorite of those last 3 gemstones? Or were there any surprises when it comes to diamond color stone grading? Or do you have some questions for me? I'd love to hear, and how I can help you. Just feel free to drop it in the chat. And let me have a quick look. Yeah, the Paraiba and the violet blue Tenzinite. I know, they are amazing. Wonderful stones. And let me see here. You can see how you can work with me, if that would be of interest to you. Me and my team offer 3 services. We focus on bespoke rings. So you can pick a stone from my collection and we make a custom ring for you based on several ring designs that I have. And another way you might be interested is to check out my website, where I have my own ready-to-wear collection of gemstones and pieces, jewelry pieces. And I also sell loose gemstones. You can also see a few of them on my website. And I noticed that sometimes people really find that fascinating to buy a loose color gemstone, because you can decide to make something later. You don't know yet what you want to make. Or you may think, hey, I want to give this to my girlfriend or to my wife or to my daughter when she turns 18, and then she can decide what she wants to make with it. So it can be a great investment or gift idea, very original. And yeah, this is what we do. We organize intimate events, and we have created a very small but lovely community with people who love these rare colored gemstones. And that has brought me to the coolest places. And yeah, that was it. 2 minutes over time. We just made it. Let me see if there are still... Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, guys. Thanks so much for being there, and maybe to another time. And Anastasia, I think, will send over the presentation and also my email and my website in case you're interested to check it out. But for now, wishing you a wonderful evening and good luck with your gemstone hunting in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.